Hello to my friends at Dyersburg Primary School. My name is Vanessa Kane. I'm the Children's Director here at McIvers Grant Public Library. And I was so excited when I saw your theme this week was Awesome Animals, Animals Grow and Change. One of my very favorite animals is the frog. The frog changes so much during its life cycle, and it's so amazing to see all the different things it can be. So just at the end of the summer, Miss Vanessa bought some things that we're going to put in the library when we reopen so that you can come in and have a little science center in the reading room. The reading room is that room on the end with a door that we do story time at. You'll be able to come in and just on the table we'll have some books and some hands-on experimenting kind of things that you can play with. And one of those things I haven't even got to share with anybody yet because we've been closed down, and it is a life cycle of the frog kit. It starts like this. It's got a little booklet that says the frog life cycle. It's got a little piece of gauze or styrofoam there to help keep everything nice and padded, and it's got all the different life cycles of the frog on it, and they are in these wonderful acrylic cubes. So you can drop them, you can mix them around, you can't hurt what's inside, and what's inside can't bother you. So what I'm going to do is, as I read this book called And the Bullfrogs Sing, which is about the frog's life cycle, I'm going to show you these little examples of what the frog's life cycle really looks like. Won't that be wonderful? So you'll be the first person to play or get to experience with our wonderful new kit. It's pretty cool. And when you come into the library, you'll be like, I know what that is. Miss Vanessa showed me that when I was at school. And you can show your little brother or sister. Won't that be cool? Okay. So this book's called And the Bullfrogs Sing, A Life Cycle Begins. It's written by David L. Harrison. That's the author. He wrote the words. And it's illustrated by Kate Cosgrove. She's the illustrator, so she drew all these wonderful pictures. And this book is a nonfiction book, even though the pictures are drawn, and a lot of times when you see a picture where a book where somebody drew the pictures, you think, well, that must be fiction. Like Froggy Gets Dressed is a book about a frog, but it's a fictional book. So this book is a make-believe book, because have you ever seen a frog with a bedroom and a quilt and a little hat and he builds snowmen? Nope, that's probably kind of just a story somebody's telling you. And they're wonderful books, but it's just a fiction book that's not about facts. This book is a nonfiction book, which means that what it tells you inside is true. So this is true information about the life cycle of a frog. This book was published by Holiday House, and it's called And the Bullfrog Sings. I like that title. Doesn't it sound poetic? Did you know that bullfrogs sing? I didn't know that for a very long time. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. It is spring, time to find a mate. A male bullfrog sings loud and deep. Rum, rum, rum. Have you ever been by a pond or some water and you've heard that? Rum, 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 rum. Sounds almost like in the weeds, things are just pulsing, like there's a bunch of people singing. That is a frog. I said people, but they're animals, aren't they? A bunch of animals singing are the frogs, and they sing rum, 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 and they're trying to find a mate so that they can have babies. A female bullfrog likes his song. Before long, she lays eggs. She lays them in sheets on the surface of the pond. So there is your big bullfrog singing. Can you sing like the bullfrog? Rum, rum, rum. And there is the pond. And can you see all the frogs? There's a frog half in the water. There's one swimming. There's a couple in the lily pads, aren't there? And then right here are all those eggs just sitting on the surface of the water. And that's where the female bullfrog lays them. They just float up there. A fish tries to eat an egg. Yuck! To some fish, bullfrog eggs taste bad. So there's a fish trying to eat an egg, and oh, he doesn't like it. He spit it right back out. That's a pretty good idea to make your eggs taste bad so that other people won't eat them other animals won't eat them when you're in the pond. Here is our first little cube, and this is what a frog egg looks like. Look at how tiny they are. These are frog eggs. These probably aren't bullfrog eggs. Can y'all see? Oh, Miss Vanessa's got upside down. Can you see the number 1 on this, on the corner? So then that way, when they're in the basket on the table and you're playing with them, you'll be able to put them in order and see which one comes first. But it's pretty clear that this one might come first because it's the very, very, very smallest. That's what a frog egg looks like. The eggs hatch. The babies have no legs. They have tails and they can only breathe underwater. They are not frogs yet. They are tadpoles. Have y'all ever heard of a tadpole? Can you see that picture of the tadpole? Looks like a fish, doesn't it? Doesn't look like a frog. Did you know that frogs start out as tadpoles? Eggs first and then tadpoles. And here, I'm going to get my little white sheet to put behind it so that you can see it. And this is a little bit bigger. It's going to be a little bit easier for you to see. Miss Vanessa doesn't have enough hands to hold my book and all my cool frog parts. Isn't that funny? So let's hold it like that and let you get a good look at the tadpole. Can you see any legs? I don't see any legs. And he looks like a fish and he breathes in the water, not the air, above the water. So he just is like a fish. Have you ever looked down in the pond and seen some tadpoles? That's so cool. So that's the second stage of the frog's life cycle. All right. The tadpoles nibble plants. They nibble algae. They grow fatter, and they begin to grow legs. So there you see. The tadpoles look like fish, and they're eating, and they're eating. And when you eat and eat and eat, what happens to you? You get big and strong. And that's what happens to these tadpoles. And as they get bigger, their legs begin to grow, and their tails begin to get shorter, it says. Their tails grow shorter, they breathe air, and now they are little bullfrogs. But there's a lot of little steps in here I'm going to show you that they show us with these tadpoles turning into a frog in our kit. This is number 3, and this shows the tadpole first starting to grow his legs. You can still see his tail, and you can see that he still looks like a fish, but now he's got some legs that are growing. And oh my goodness, this one, you can start to see his front legs growing, and now he's starting to look more like a frog, isn't he? And I think his tail is even getting a little bit shorter, isn't it? As he grows and eats all that good food, he's going to change and change and change. And there he is again. And look how tiny his tail is and how big his legs are. And look at his little front feet. Now he's starting to really look more like a frog than a tadpole, isn't he? And now he can start to breathe air as well as being able to breathe underwater. So he's really turning into a frog. He's so close to being a frog. And so that shows in the pictures those same things. There's the tadpole. There he is growing. He's getting bigger, bigger. His legs are starting to grow. His tail's getting shorter. His big legs are growing. He's starting to look more like a frog, and he can breathe some air. And then finally, he is a frog. So let's see what else it says. Little bullfrogs taste good. Yum. Fish love to eat them. So do turtles and birds and snakes and big bullfrogs. So these are all the people who are trying to eat the little frogs, now that they're little frogs. Do you remember when they were talking about what the frogs eat? They said they ate eggs. So they would try to eat some eggs that were floating on the top of the water like they used to be. And some little fish. And so now that they get a little bit bigger, some of the bigger fish want to eat them. And that's what happens in a pond. I'm glad I don't live in a pond. Let me show you the rest of our frog turning into our tadpole turning into a frog. There's another one. Now his tail is about just all the way gone, isn't it? And he looks like a little bitty frog, and that is where the book says that the animals are thinking that might be a good little snack. And then look, as he grows bigger, we're going to look at him again in a minute. Look how big this one is. Look at that big bullfrog in that plastic. Isn't that cool? And Miss Vanessa's putting this white thing behind it because I held it up earlier and you can see me through it. So that helps you see the frog. You don't have to hold it with a piece of white foam behind it when you look at it in person. But look, there's his bottom of him, his belly. So I was trying to say his belly. I guess I could have showed you the belly of the frogs. There's a little belly. All right, so those are the animals that are trying to eat the little frogs now that they are the little frogs that we just looked at. Bullfrogs don't chew their food, they gulp it down. Wings and fins and bones and all. Gulp. Can you gulp something like a bullfrog? Gulp. The little bullfrogs like to eat. All they do is eat and hide. If a fly buzzes by, a long tongue shoots out. Zap! Bye-bye, fly. So there you've got, we don't have the tongue sticking out on our real frogs that we have in our little plastic, but that shows you that that's what these little bullfrogs do to get to be the big bullfrog. They eat and they hide. They don't want to get eaten, do they? If a spider crawls by, zap, bye-bye, spider. There's his tongue. If a tiny fish swims by, splash, gulp, bye-bye, fish. That's going to make them big and strong, just like when you eat your food. Big and strong with lots of muscles. Big frogs jump into the pond. Mid-sized frogs jump in too. Now they're growing. Now they're mid-sized frogs. We don't have a mid-sized frog in our collection. We've got a little frog and a really big frog. On the muddy bottom, their hearts slow down and they breathe through their skin. And they look like they're asleep, but they are hibernating. We talk a lot about bears hibernating, don't we? When we go into the winter, we talk about bears getting up in their big den and just going to sleep for the whole winter. But did you know that frogs do that too? They get into the water, they go down to the bottom in the mud, they get very still and very quiet. And because it's cold down there, their heart beats a lot slower because they are not a mammal, warm-blooded animal like we are. What's around them determines their temperature. So when they go down to the bottom of that cold pond, their heart beats really slow, like the bears when the bear is sleeping in his den in the winter, and they go to sleep. And it says they breathe through their skin. Isn't that interesting? I don't breathe through my skin. Do you breathe through your skin? I think that's so amazing about these animals, how different they are. How wonderful. Spring comes, the bullfrogs wake up hungry, and they hop out of the pond. And the mid-sized bullfrogs eat fat worms and moths and little lizards and even other frogs. And there is a mid-sized bullfrog eating a worm. Ooh, and there's a mid-sized bullfrog eating a little frog. And there's a mid-sized bullfrog eating a lizard. They are hungry when they wake up, just like the bear when we talk about the bear being hungry. It is time to find a mate. The big male bullfrogs sing on the bank for female bullfrogs. Remember how we talked about them doing that in the spring? And what do they sound like? Rum, 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 rum. The mid-sized bullfrogs sing too. Their voices are mid-size. Rum, 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 rum. And the females choose the older, bigger frogs. But they're learning to sing, aren't they? Can you sing like a frog? Rum, 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 rum. Next time you go out by a pond, you'll have to tell your grown-up, I know what that noise is. That's a bullfrog singing. The mid-sized bullfrogs eat and grow all spring. There they are, eating and growing all spring. They grow all summer. They keep growing all summer. Fall comes, and they have now grown into big bullfrogs. And we're going to look one more time at our two different sized bullfrogs. I'm going to do it like this so you can see them next to each other. See if Miss Vanessa can hold them right in her hands. There's the different sized bullfrogs. There's the little one, and then they grew and they ate and they ate and they grew and they hid and they ate and they grew and they turned into this big bullfrog. This is rum, 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 rum. And let's look at their tummies because we can turn them over and look at their tummies. I really like these. Aren't they neat? We've got a couple more sets with other things that I'm going to talk to you about some other time. Isn't that cool? All right. Now they're big bullfrogs, just like that. And those bullfrogs are eating, aren't they? They're still eating so they can stay big. Winter comes. The bullfrogs hibernate again at the bottom of the pond. And there, when they're showing you winter, they're also showing you some of the animals above the pond. There's some deer in the snow, and there is the bottom of the pond, and there is the frog. There they all are, sleeping at the bottom of the pond and breathing through their skin, and their heartbeats are very slow. Spring comes again. Time to find mates. Birds whistle for mates. Crickets chirp for mates, and foxes yip for mates. So in the springtime, that's when everybody's falling in love, aren't they? All the animals are making families in the spring. There's a fox, there's the birds, and there's the crickets. Can you see the crickets? And the bullfrog sings, rum, rum, rum. A female picks her favorite singer, and soon there will be more tadpoles. So we go from the little bitty eggs to the tadpole that has legs and a tail, to the little bitty frogs, to the medium-sized frogs, to the big bullfrogs. And this, what I like about nonfiction books is a lot of times they give you a lot more information at the end of the book. And this says more about bullfrogs. Bullfrogs are the biggest frogs in North America, and that's where we live, is in North America. Bullfrogs can weigh 1.5 pounds, leap more than 4 feet, live up to 10 years, stay underwater all winter, and take in oxygen through their skin. Female bullfrogs don't croak as often as males, but they're bigger than males. Bullfrogs have teeth, but they're very small, and bullfrog tongues attach in the front of their mouths. So they're not in the back of their mouth like us. They're in the front, and they stick them way out, don't they? Have you seen those pictures where they reach out and grab something with that big old long tongue? And then that's the end of that book. I really like this book by David Harrison. I think he did a great job of telling us all about the bullfrog's life cycle and how it grows and changes. And I'm so glad that we were able to share it together today. And when you come into the library, when we open up and we have our science, you might just see this book and these little life cycle cubes on a table where you can play with it. I'm going to show you very quickly 2 more books. This book has a little bit about frogs in it as well. It's called Little Kid's First Big Book of Reptiles and Amphibians, and it's by National Geographic. And look at those bright colors, and look at that wonderful frog. And this is talking about tree frogs, and there's a picture of their eggs. That's what I wanted to show you. Sometimes nonfiction books have pictures of animals instead of drawings. I like it when that happens. All right, there's one. And then this book is called Face to Face with Frogs, and it's by National Geographic as well. This one's a little bit older book at the library, but it's so beautiful. Look how, have you ever been that close to a frog face? I don't think I've been that close to a frog face. And this one I wanted to show you was the tadpole, a picture of the tadpole, what it really looks like. Now you've seen it in our cubes, and you've seen a picture of it in a book, and you've seen a drawing of it in a book. So you are an expert on frogs and tadpoles now. You'll be able to tell everybody everything you know. Thank you so much for hanging in here with me. I know this was a long one, but we sure did have fun, didn't we? I love how amazing animals are. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon.